I'm guessing these are the moments you cherish.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't have much time in your day to spend with them, so it's always nice to, Kate will scoot off and go for a run or whatever and leave me with Maddie for an hour, and I enjoy every second of it. Sometimes she's screaming, but I just try to do my best and enjoy the time and keep her semi-calm. This year I've shown up a lot later. In the past I'd be there, one of the first guys there, but this year I just try to give Kate as much of a, as much help as I can and stay as long as I can. And also just, get to spend as much time with Maddie as I can too. So it's hard, but it's the job we have. So, everyone has to work with what you got, and I just make sure that I just cherish every moment I got with her.
Ready?
Oh, God. It's shaking.
Go.
Oh, God.
I'm scared. I can't get it.
Did you?
No.
Oh, no. Oh, don't. Stop it. Oh, stop. Stop it. It's a girl.
AJ Pollock met Kate Newall at Notre Dame. There, he led the Irish in batting 3 straight years, while she started 61 games as a midfielder in lacrosse. 5 years after AJ was drafted in the first round by the Diamondbacks, the couple married in December 2014.
I'm from Australia. I grew up in London, and AJ actually didn't have a passport until he met me, so we wanted to spend our first few years of marriage just traveling around and seeing family and kind of seeing the world. So we obviously had decided to wait a little bit longer than most. We felt like the time was right to start trying to have a family, and we were both really, really excited.
You see some of your friends with little girls, and they're just so cute, and they're just they just melt your heart. And so immediately I was thinking, I'm in trouble. If she asked me for anything, I don't know how I'd say no to, a daughter, a cute little daughter.
Pregnancy started pretty well at the beginning. From 12 weeks till about 22 weeks, I felt really, really good, and everything was kind of progressing nicely, and Maddie looked great in all the scans. She was super active. And then at about 22 weeks, I started to get a fever, and things kind of slowly, I guess, went downhill from there. At around 23 weeks, I started having some cramping and a little bit of bleeding. That night, I'm lying in bed, and I was timing it, and it was getting a little bit closer together, and I said to AJ, something doesn't feel right. I think that we should go to the hospital.
This is when COVID was going on. It was just it literally was just escalating big time. So all the protocols in the hospital were changing.
I told him, you just go home and get some rest and I'll be fine, because at the time he wasn't allowed into antepartum where I'd be monitored. And about an hour later, I got up from the OB triage bed to move to antepartum, and my water broke. And AJ got back in the car and raced back to the hospital, and my OB raced in, and she sat on my bed and she said, yeah, your water's broken, we're gonna try and stop labor.
At this stage of the pregnancy, 23 weeks and 5 days, time in the womb is critical. Babies delivered this early, more than 3 months premature, often face complicated medical issues.
In Kate's situation, the goal was to keep her pregnant and to keep Maddie inside of her, because each day makes a difference, particularly when it comes to lung development.
Dr. Castrillo came to our room and sat down on the bed and spoke to us and said, the chances of Maddie making it are about 60 to 70%. We don't know what her quality of life will look like, but those are just her chances of survival. She sat there and she said, do you want to resuscitate if she was born, today?
And I'm trying to process it, and Kate is saying yes, 100%. And I'm not thinking, I'm just trying to, in my head, going over, why are they even asking us this?
The question isn't so much, will the baby survive? The question is, what happens if the baby does survive? What does that mean, both in the short term and long term in terms of quality of life, and what kind of problems they may have in the next couple of years or potentially lifelong?
The difficult thing when you talk to a family before they deliver is that you don't ever know which baby is going to be the baby that is going to thrive and do well, and which baby is going to be the baby that passes away.
Through pregnancy, whenever we did a checkup, she was super healthy, and yeah, we wanted to just give her every chance we could.
11 o'clock that night, I started to get really bad contractions. I was kind of in and out for the next 16 hours. I'd wake up every about 5 minutes in excruciating pain. And poor AJ just sat there and kind of watched me and watched the heart rate monitor of Maddie and just didn't really know what was gonna happen.
She's not gonna be able to hold on. You know, it was pretty obvious about that. So we knew that she was probably gonna deliver Maddie that day. Kate was just such a trooper. She literally held on as long as possible. So proud of her for that. Yeah, literally. Maddie couldn't have kept her in another minute.
Maddi May Pollock was born at 3:06 p.m. on the 19th of March 2020, and she weighed 1 pound 6 ounces.
Maddie was born in the 23-week gestational age range, right at the age of being able to be resuscitated.
As nurses, you just kind of go into that focus of, this is my job, we need to save this kid, this is what we need to do.
Their image of having a baby and going through labor and then being able to hold the baby, all of a sudden it was changed drastically when her water broke. But then that whole image and fantasy that parents have is quickly demolished. They see a team taking care of their baby over in the corner and they don't know what's going on. They hear things, but it's terribly frightening.
When people have a baby, it's the immediate joy. For me, it was terrified. You know, you see how small she is, and it's shocking. You're just like, okay, like this girl's gonna have some challenges that she's gonna have to meet.
We did what we needed to do. She got her breathing tube and had a heart rate almost right away.
At that point, everyone shouted, "We have a heartbeat," and I just remember looking at AJ and crying, and it was a pretty emotional moment because we just didn't know. We didn't know what had just happened, and she obviously looked tiny. She was just this kind of tiny thing thrown on my leg and then taken away.
I just remember kind of staring at Maddie and thinking, nobody's guaranteed tomorrow, you know, and instead of thinking about what her future could be, when I'm looking at her, I just want to enjoy who she is right now.
The reason her case was more complicated is not only was the family dealing with having an extremely premature infant, but Kate and AJ and all of the medical team were basically dealing with something that we had never dealt with before, which was we have a preemie infant in the NICU during a pandemic.
The coronavirus had just kind of started and everything had just been put on lockdown, so they explained to us that AJ and I couldn't go in to see Maddie together. They'd just changed the rules, I think, that morning in the NICU.
They kind of relied on us telling them, oh, well, AJ got to change a diaper this morning and Kate got a hold today. And like, that was so sad for us to see that they didn't get to do that together, that we had to tell them kind of what happened throughout the day.
A week into her life, we were able to start holding her, and that was a big moment. She just kind of melted into me, and you just feel like a love you've never really felt before, and it was a really emotional time. I just remember sitting there thinking like, wow, like we have a daughter, and even though she's tiny, like she's a fighter and she's gonna be okay.
I just remember just being so happy holding her, and she did so well on me. She was just, you can see the monitor, you can see that she's relaxed, and talking to her, it was amazing.
A 24-weeker they're not expected to have an easy course. And Maddie, she had very, very few complications, and she excelled and she exceeded. And I told Kate once, I said, honestly, I think part of the reason why she has done so well is because she knows, and somehow she knows that like Kate and AJ love her and that they're there for her.
She just kept going in the right direction. Like she just kept fighting. And I think part of it was having AJ and Kate there with her. Like she knew she was never fighting alone. And so she just kept kind of moving forward. She kept everything we throw at her, she took it and she fought through it, and she was awesome.
3 months into her life, Maddie made Pollock's growth and spirit impress those around her. But AJ's health provided a scare.
He didn't go in and see Maddie that day. He just didn't feel great. And the next day he went and got a COVID test. And at that point, even though I'd been completely and utterly paranoid about COVID the entire time that Maddie had been in the NICU, I still at that point didn't think there's any way he had it.
Stayed upstairs in our house. I slept upstairs. I stayed away from everyone. So the next morning, Kate comes upstairs, check on me. Ollie, my dog, is at the door scratching. And then right when that was going on, I get a call, and it was, didn't know who it was. I pick up, it's the Mayo Clinic. And the guy casually goes, oh yeah, you have the coronavirus. And he's talking to me about what I need to do. And I'm like, wait a second, what?
He's talking to me through the door, and I said, are you positive? And he said, yeah, I'm positive. And I just sat on the floor and sobbed. I just was scared that, you know, he'd given it to Maddie, and like after everything that we'd gone through and got her to that point, that it was gonna kill her. And sorry, it's hard for me to talk about. It was probably the hardest part.
If you need to take a break too.
Sorry.
Finding out AJ had coronavirus was, in a sense, our worst fear. Kate was very panicked that she'd been exposed and could be either asymptomatic or have gotten sick. And then there was a thought of them not being able to visit. And that was really, really tough on them.
I had to spend 10 days away from her and 10 days away from AJ, and he came out to California and quarantined out here so that he wasn't around me. We've been our only support system, and then suddenly we're separated, and there was just a lot of question marks, and it was just really, really hard.
When Kate and AJ were gone, it just felt empty. The room felt different, and Maddie missed them, we missed them, and you know, we just tried our best to try to make it as normal for them as possible. So whether it was FaceTiming, getting phone updates from them, just because I can't imagine what it's like to not be able to see your child for 2 weeks. And then, you know, but as soon as Kate got to come back, I was there the day she got to visit for the first time, and Maddie was just a different baby.
Felt like she'd grown up when really she hadn't. I just remember holding her, and it was emotional.
As Kate reunited with Maddie in Arizona, AJ was recovering in quarantine in California when Major League Baseball announced the return of the season, a return that forced the couple to make a difficult decision.
The shortened spring training had actually already started, and he obviously couldn't be there because of his positive test, but we had always known there was going to be a chance that he had to leave sometime during her journey. We hoped that she would be close to coming home, but we didn't know.
You know, when the season finally was ready to go, I asked her point blank, are you comfortable with this? You know, like I can not play this year. You know, this is some serious stuff. We have a lot going on.
I said to him, you know, do you really think that you could sit on the couch and watch your team play and watch them potentially win a World Series? Because I know that I couldn't.
And then that was that.
Once clear of COVID, AJ made one last trip home to see his family before returning to camp for the season.
He came back and he saw Maddie for about 4 days, and he had to leave again. And I remember standing in the driveway, and he took our dog with him, and, you know, I'm sobbing, crying, and because at that point I was completely alone, you know, and I really lent on the nurses then to, you know, be my emotional support system.
Every single shift that I worked for 4 months, I took care of Maddie. I got to see her grow every day right along with the parents. You develop a relationship with these parents and these families because they're the people that you sit next to for 12 hours a day.
You're not just taking care of the baby, you're taking care of the family. And you're not just a nurse, but you're kind of like that support system for them, and especially during COVID. And my job as a nurse is to take care of their baby as if it was my own, but also to advocate for them of what they want.
To be able to be at home and know that they're in there giving your baby so much love and attention, and you know, they taught me how to be Maddie's mom, essentially. It's like on this corner.
Mm-hmm.
That's the part where I was questioning the whole time. I didn't feel like I should have been here. And she was just very scared, and she was over it, and she was frustrated, but she also wanted me to be here. So that's what kept me here.
At about 42 weeks, a doctor came in and said, you know, she's stable. She doesn't hold her breath. She doesn't have events. She's been off oxygen now for a few weeks. She needs to go home and be surrounded by your love, and she's gonna thrive. So at that point, we started making plans for Maddie to come home.
Everyone was comfortable with Maddie going home at a certain date, and the date was the day after opening day. I was gonna play on Thursday, and then I was gonna leave, get back to Arizona for Friday, and then Saturday was the day.
That morning, I went in there and they said, you know, AJ can come in for the 10 minutes before you leave the hospital. So he came in, and our nurse, I think, was filming it because she knew it was just a really emotional time for us.
This is the first time since the first time. Pretty cool, huh? Wow. You wanna go home?
You know, it was quiet. AJ just walked over to her and put his arm right on Kate. He just looked at his two girls for the first time, and that was cool. It was really neat. And they just kind of sat there in silence. Nobody said anything for a long while.
So cool.
Oh, honey. You're just so precious.
We saw her for about maybe 3 seconds. Put her right on Kate's leg,
Yeah.
and then this is the first time since then.
Yeah.
You know, all her experiences with Maddie were on her own, and all my experiences were on my own, and we hadn't had any shared experiences together. And that was a cool moment, knowing that from this moment forward, pretty much everything we're going to be doing together and all the memories with Maddie are going to be together.
It was an incredible feeling, you know, walking out of the hospital. Erica had made her this red carpet and written on there, you know, 128 days and finally going home, and we'll miss you. And the nurses were crying and we were crying.
Getting to watch that moment when they finally get to say, this is our baby and we're taking her home, there's usually never a dry eye.
You spend a lot of time like working with her, you know, working as hard as you possibly can to do the best that you can for this little girl, and you kind of like become like a second set of family to them. But it was kind of like, oh, a piece of my heart is go driving off, but for the best reason.
You'll do awesome. You guys do. Thank you so much. Congratulations.
You know, you spent that long in this hospital setting where you have all this help, and you suddenly take her into the world and you're like, whoa, like, have I got this? You know, do I know how to be a parent, and is she gonna be okay? But at the same time, you're just, you know, you're ready. It had been a long journey, and we were ready to have her at home.
There we go. New adventures await.
Now she is 10 pounds, 2 ounces, and she's thriving, and she's in a really fun stage. She's super smiley and interactive, and you know, you walk in the mornings and she looks up at you and gives you this big smile, and she's a happy baby, and she's a fighter, and she truly is a little miracle. So we're super just loving life and loving life as parents.
Changed me a lot, you know, especially because baseball's been my life. It's put on a pedestal, I think in a bad way too. And the most important thing for me is here, and you know, I have to leave the game at the field because I need to be here for my family when I'm at home.
Come on, you're not that bad. Come here.
AJ and I lent on each other, and we became stronger as a couple, and you know, I think that we'll always have just such a special bond with Maddie, and we'll always know she's just such a strong baby, and she's been through a lot, and I think we'll always just have that really special connection.
Maddie's got a very, very special mom. She's gonna know from me all that Kate did for her and all the sacrifices she made before she was even 1 year old.
Just really thankful. I mean, AJ was my rock, he was Maddie's rock. He was there no matter what, with, you know, positivity, and even in the darkest days, he would hold me and say, you know, everything's gonna be okay, she's gonna be okay. And he was just a very steady, calming presence while also, you know, going through a lot himself. Like, I can't believe we actually have a daughter and she's home, and we're just kind of living normal life. Hey.
Didn't think we were gonna get here for sure when we were in the NICU.
You came a long way, huh?
Seemed like you just wanted to live there. Every time I look at Maddie, I'm just thinking about how much of a miracle she is. The time that she came too. She came during a global pandemic. She came during so many things that were just crazy, and she came at 24 weeks and 1 pound 6 ounces, and she's doing great. You know, that's not something that we're gonna take for granted ever. We say every day, she's our miracle baby, and now we got a beautiful little daughter that we're both looking at every day, and get to show her the world.